Hello guys, in this video I'd like to share with you some peculiarities of testing types and levels classification of ISTQB. I'm sure you know that ISTQB is the leading global certification scheme in the field of software testing. Its syllabus contains 6 main sections, and the section number 2 and section number 3 are including information about testing levels, testing types, and some specific in classification by ISTQB Foundation certification. So, the main division is pretty usual for you, I suppose. That's division to functional testing and non-functional testing. One more time, functional testing is aimed to test functions, features that system should perform. So functional testing is actually testing what system does. Non-functional testing just like concentrates on the characteristics of the system, of the software, such as usability, performance, security, accessibility, and so on. So non-functional testing is all about testing how good system works. You can see examples on the slide, but actually that's pretty the same as we've discussed during our previous video. One more important division is division to white box testing or structural testing and black box testing. I'd like you to pay attention to the fact that in some sources and in the test for this certification, structural testing is just as usual term synonymatic to the white box testing. One more time, white box testing or structural testing based on the system internal structure, based on the knowledge and access to the code. So by internal structure, we mean code, architecture, data flows within the system, and so on. And the main objective, the main aim of this form of testing, of this type, is the infrastructure of the application. So we are executing the program to analyze the infrastructure. White box testing is usually performed by software developers, as this type of testing requires the knowledge of internal structure and how it works. Vice versa, black box testing is testing an application without accessing to internal structure, without knowledge of the code, so it can be performed by manual, by functional software testers. And the main objective is to test the functionality, the behavior of the application. So it's usually like performed by entering inputs by our user interface. We're using interface. Do not go to the code. But you should pay attention that according to ISTQB, black box is more about test technique. So, and there are like 5 some divisions of black box test technique. That is use test, case testing, equivalence partitioning, boundary value analysis, decision table testing, and state transition table. If we are talking about use case testing, like again, test technique of black box testing, so in this case, test can be derived from use cases, If we are talking about equivalence partition, in this case, the data divided into portions, and in such portions, the given portions are expected to be processed by our system in the same way. Boundary value analysis, again, is like extension of equivalence partitioning and can be used when partitioning is ordered. So this is like portions of minimum, maximum values plus boundary values. One more variant of black box test technique is decision table testing. When creating decision tables, you should identify conditions and the resulting actions. And this is like formulated in a table. State transition table, or mostly it's called state transition diagram, shows the possible software states, like changes of these states after some kind of event. For example, use an input value and what will happen if this value is valid, what will happen if this valid is what happened if this value is invalid, and so on. So I'm not going to stop here because that's not about a testing type, but still like subdivision of black box test techniques. If you are interested in, you're welcome to look through the ISTQB syllabus. Okay, one more very important decision. I've mentioned that for static testing, it's like a separate part, a separate section in the ISTQB syllabus. So the synonym for static testing in this ISTQB is review. So static testing, if you remember from the previous videos, is like testing without executing the code. So you're just reviewing some artifacts, you're like doing some static analysis. So the synonym is review here. Dynamic testing requires an execution of the software to test it. So static testing without launching, without execution of the application, dynamic testing with execution of the software to test it. And actually in ISTQB, these two testing types are pretty connected with two more terms. Static testing is always associated with verification and dynamic testing with validation. What does it mean? If we are talking about verification, static testing, we should verify that the product that we are developing fulfills the requirements that we have. We just like analyze the requirement and our product, and this is the task of static testing. Verification means, are we building the product right? So let's look at our requirement. Let's look at our project. Are we on the right way? Are we doing it right according to the requirement? But if we are talking about validation, and this is like the term associated with dynamic testing, validation actually checks that we are developing the right product for our final user. So it is a validation of actual and expected results for our users. And it means, are we building the right product? Will it be like sold, on the market? So verification, are we building the product right? About the process, about the requirements, validation, about the expected result from our final users, Are we building the right product? One more information that is also included in the information about static testing. Again, static testing is more about reviewing, and these reviews can be performed like in different types. So first type is informal review, and it is not based on a formal documented process, maybe performed by colleagues of the author, kind of body check or peer review, one person, more people, that's okay. Absolutely informal process. If we are talking about walkthrough, so actually it's optional, but for most of the cases, checklists are used to review the results of the another person work. Sometimes even the meetings can be held, and walkthrough requires some kind of preparation before the review. If we are talking about technical review, reviewers should be technical peers of the author. For example, if you are like automation tester and you are asking to review your script, so your reviewer should be like your technical peer. Scribe for this kind of review is mandatory, and ideally not the author should do it. And the last review type is inspection. I suppose you understand that this is like the most formal way of reviewing. It follows a definite process with formal documented outputs, and it's absolutely 100% based on rules and checklists. Moreover, ISTQB provides you with information about review techniques. So maybe you remember that in the previous videos we've discussed ad hoc testing, like kind of a separate type according to formalization level. If you're going to pass ISTQB certification, forget about it. So static testing, review techniques, and one of it is ad hoc review. The meaning is actually the same. So reviewers are provided with little or no guidance on how this task should be performed. Yeah, just your experience, intuition, and so on. If it is a checklist-based review, this is like a much more systematic technique where reviewers just detect any issues based on the checklist. Again, so checklist should be created for this review. In a scenario-based review, reviewers are provided with structured guidelines on how to read through the work product. A scenario-based approach supports reviewers in performing like dry runs on the work product based on experience usage of the work product. A role-based review, like one more technique. This is a technique in which the reviewers evaluate the work product from the perspective of individual stakeholder rules. For example, typical roles can include specific end users type, like, I don't know, experienced user, unexperienced user, senior, child, and so on. Maybe some kind of specific roles in the organization, user administrator, system administrator, performance tester, and so on. In perspective, based reading, similar to role-based reviewing, reviewers will also take some kind of roles. But in this case, typical stakeholder viewpoints should include such roles as end user, designer, tester, operation, and using these like roles, you are analyzing your application like more deeply, with less duplication, like more professional, and so on. Also, there is a classification that is called change-related testing. And as a functional testers, you should understand that when changes are made to the system, either to correct a defect or because of a new change in functionality, of course, testing should be done to confirm that the changes have corrected the defect, for example, have fixed it, or the implemented new functionality was implemented correctly, and that doesn't cause any unforeseen consequences on the system, and so on. So change-related testing and ISTQB are devoted to confirmation testing and regression testing. So confirmation testing is always held when the defect was fixed. And the purpose of the confirmation test is to confirm actually that this originally found defect has been successfully corrected. If we are talking about, confirmation testing is usually like passing one test case, 2-3 test cases that like steps to reproduce of this previously found defect. But if we are talking about regression testing, that's all about changes, the implementing of new functionality, new components to the system, new components and new integration maybe appears. So regression actually involves running tests to detect side effects of this new implementation. So the area of test cases, if I can say like that, are like a larger one. So confirmation testing just pass one test case and check that defect was fixed. But if we are talking about regression testing and a new module, new component was implemented, so you should check not only like this component, but the area around it, new connections, new integration, something that can be involved, something that can have side effects. One more testing types included into ISTQB syllable is maintenance testing. So once deployed to production environment, each application needs to be maintained. Of course, you can add some new functionality. You can delete some functionality. You can find some bugs while maintenance. So also, if we are talking about maintenance testing, ISTQB gives you like triggers for maintenance. Yeah. So as I said before, this is any kind of modification, but also it can be triggered by migration. For example, when your application moves from one platform to another, and retirement, such as when an application reaches the end of its life. Some words about testing levels in ISTQB. Actually, there are 4 known test levels: component testing, integration testing, system testing, and acceptance testing. And if we are talking about ISTQB classification, component testing is like a synonym for unit or module testing, and it focuses on components that can be tested separately. Integration testing focuses on interaction between these components or between different parts of the system. If we are talking about system testing level, so it mainly focuses on the behavior of the system as a whole, our product as a whole. And system testing actually is often considering as the end-to-end tasks, yeah, we should perform to check functions, to check non-functional behaviors, and so on. And the last level is acceptance testing, and it's pretty close to system testing, but typically focuses on the readiness of the product to be released to the public. Yeah, so it should produce information to check that the system is completely ready for deployment and use by our customer, our end users. And according to ISTQB, there are some forms of acceptance testing. First of all, acceptance testing can be divided into user acceptance testing and operational acceptance testing. The acceptance testing of the system by users, yeah, or user acceptance testing is typically focused on validation, the fitness for use of the system to our final users. And the main objective here is building like confidence that the users can use the system to meet their needs, to fulfill their requirements, to perform their business processes, and so on. So the idea is to validate, yeah, the application. You know this word after this lecture. So if we're talking about operational acceptance testing or the acceptance testing of the system by operation or system administration staff, so it's usually performed in a production environment. The test while operating acceptance testing is focused on backup, restoring, installation, uninstallation, disaster recovery, user management, maintenance, maybe some task, performance testing, and so on. So user acceptance testing is like validation to our final users. Operational acceptance testing is focuses on operational aspects. One more division is division to contractual acceptance testing and regulatory acceptance testing. If we are talking about contractual acceptance testing, so it's performed against the contract's acceptance criteria for producing custom developed software. And in this case, acceptance criteria should be defined, yeah, and it is often performed by users or by independent testers. If you are talking about regulatory acceptance testing, and this testing is usually performed against any regulations that must be adhered to, such as government, legal, safety regulation, and regulatory acceptance testing is often performed by users, again, by independent testers, and sometimes with the result being witnesses or audited by regulatory agencies. Like the last division, and also well known for you, acceptance testing can be like alpha testing and beta testing. The main idea of alpha testing is that it's performed at the developing organization's site, so like inside the organization, but not by the development team, by maybe by potential or existing customers or by independent test team. If we're talking about beta testing, so beta testing is performed only by potential customers, only by potential final users, and they perform this kind of testing on their machines, on their using their operating system. So alpha testing inside the organization by independent testing team. Beta testing is like releasing to a selected part of our final users by potential existing customers, and they are performing this testing on their own environment. Actually, that's all about testing types and levels by ISTQB. So, bye.